Wow, I really did not expect the mini-boss roster from Paper Mario Sticker Star to be this awful. Seriously, I had very low expectations, but even I was disappointed. That's really sad. Some of these bosses are either extremely simple or forgettable, and the other ones are just very annoying with their very annoying concepts. So, this list was very hard to make, and I haven't even made it yet, because I know how hard it's gonna be. I thought that the intro would be easier than making the list. That really shows how hard this list is going to be to make. I'm not going to be including every single mini-boss, though. I'm not going to be including the Bowser Jr. fight that's on the little boat. I will obviously be including the one in the airship, but not the one I just talked about. I will also not going to be including the Chain Chomps, because the Chain Chomps don't really count as fights in my opinion. They don't really feel like it. Do you guys? I don't, so I'm not going to be including it for this list. But other than that, every other mini-boss in this game is fair game. So let's just get right into this list. But actually, before we get started, I really appreciate if you like the video. Let's try to hit maybe 125 likes. And also, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I'm trying to hit 4,000 subscribers by the end of the year. But other than that, let's get started on this video. But actually, another disclaimer, I do want to mention that a lot of these bosses are very short. So you're going to see a lot of repeating footage, because I really don't have much to work with. Some of these bosses are not even a minute long, so you really cannot blame me for that. So sorry about that, but let's actually get into this list now. The Big Boo is my second least favorite boss fight from this game, just right behind Bowser, and that really does say something. I really hate this fight. It is actually on my favorite level in this game, which also kind of makes it even more infuriating. Think about it, if this level just ended without the Big Boo, you got every single ghost in the book and you sealed them, and you completed the level. This level would be great and very enjoyable, but now, because of this fight, just kind of balances out to be an okay to decent level, which is, again, really disappointing. The reason I really hate this fight is because the Boo goes invisible, and there's no real way that you can actually make him, like, non-invisible. There's not really any logical way, even when you have a ton of thing cards. I mean, in the footage they use the fan, which, I mean, I guess that works. I guess it damages him somehow, and sure, there you go. I don't even remember how to defeat this guy. I really don't remember how I did it. It's ridiculous. I hate that so much. At least for the other bosses in this game, I don't like that there's thing cards in there. Once you use a thing card, they're basically dead. But at the very least, when I replay this game, I'll know that all I have to do is just use that thing card, and bam, I won. But with this battle, I have no idea what to do still. I don't actually remember what I did. And that's a really bad thing, and it's why I really hate this fight. Again, this boss should not exist, and I really wish the level just ended without this thing. It'd be so much better. And, well, sadly it's here, and it shows. It's my least favorite mini-boss from this game by far. The Big Scuttlebug is the most forgettable boss fight in this game, in my opinion. Now, the first Kamek fight gets really close, and we'll talk about that, but the Big Scuttlebug takes the crown for this one. It's just so forgettable. It's in the third world, and fun fact, I didn't actually remember this fight. Kind of shows how forgettable it is, until I looked at the boss list for this game on the Mario Wiki. And then I realized, oh yeah, it exists. I'm probably going to forget about this boss fight in a week. That's really sad. But the boss fight itself, the reason why it's so forgettable is because there's literally nothing to it. There's two phases, I guess. The first thing that you want to do is destroy the web, which you can use boomerangs. I think I use fire flowers, which kind of makes sense. And then you have to kill the Scuttlebug itself with fire flowers or jumps. You cannot use hammers because you don't have your hammer with you. You can use hammer stickers, but if you use them, then it won't do anything because you don't have a hammer, and you just waste that sticker, which is kind of annoying, but that's not really that big of a problem compared to this boss just being so dang forgettable. The main thing that I do want to point out, and this isn't even about this fight itself, but I do think that simple and forgettable boss fights are worse than boss fights that have annoying concepts that I don't constantly think about. Unlike the Big Boo, which I really do hate that fight. But with a boss like, I don't know, the third Kamek fight, basically a fight that's very close to the end of the game that a lot of people hate, that I don't really mind that fight too much, but it has an annoying concept, and people do not like it. But I also think that they tried with the concept, which is better than the big scuttlebug, which I guess that's why I might have it a bit higher on the list. I don't know. It's weird. This list is very weird. I don't like the mini-bosses in Sticker Star. We're moving on to the next entry. The first Kamek fight is very simple, and a lot of people actually hate the second and third Kamek fight because it uses the flip-flops, but I actually think the first Kamek fight is the worst one, because this fight is very simple and forgettable, and like I said, a simple and forgettable fight is going to be worse than a fight that has an annoying concept that I don't constantly think about or genuinely hate. So in that regard, I mean, this fight is just that. It's just a very simple and forgettable fight. At the very least, though, this is the first boss fight in the game, so it kind of had to be, which is why it is above the big scuttlebug. Also, this fight has more HP than the big scuttlebug, which is really sad, but again, it's another reason. And there's also enemies on the battlefield, which makes it a tiny bit more interesting, but that's it. There really isn't anything else about these fights. It still isn't great, but the Kamek fight, the first one, is the worst one out of the three, but it's also very simple, so I guess other people could get that appeal. But for me personally, I just want a boss fight that's a tiny bit more interesting. I know a lot of people really do not like the last Kamek fight, and I can absolutely understand why. Most of the problems that people have, I also have with it. I actually don't mind that your stickers get turned into sandals. I think it's kind of unique. Obviously, it is copied from the second Kamek fight, which as you can tell is my quote-unquote favorite. But because of the battle system in Sticker Star, this fight is so heavily damaged by it. Because of the battle spinner, it's so dang difficult to attack every single one of the Kameks, because a sandal is a single attack move. And because of how Sticker Star's battle system works, you can't actually select which Kamek you can fight, which is pretty irritating. It's a big problem I have with the battle system in general. But, I mean, other than that, I don't really hate anything else about it. Okay, never mind, I forgot. Kamek levitates. And again, going back to you not being able to select which Kamek you can fight, it's pretty irritating. And if you don't have enough slots for the battle spinner, which is pretty hard to get 3, well, you cannot attack the Kamek in the back, and if the first two are levitating, well, you're just wasting sandals. It's very irritating, I can understand why people hate it. I don't completely hate the fight, as you can tell, it's just kind of forgettable to me, which is why it's above the fights that are just completely boring, but when people do bring it up, I don't like it. I don't like this fight. It really was affected by the battle system, not the fight itself, which is probably another reason why I don't completely hate the fight. The Big Buzzy Beetle is not terrible. It has a concept. That's not something I can say about some of these fights. But just kind of like the third Kamek fight, the main problem I have with this fight isn't the fight itself. It's the battle system. With the battle spinner, you have to get at least 2 slots. Luckily, you can guarantee this, which is why I don't completely hate this fight, but it is still kind of irritating and it shows how flawed the battle system is. And then you have to use a POW to knock over the Buzzy Beetle, and then you jump on it, or preferably I jump on it just because I'm better with the jump. And after you deal 40 damage, bam, he dead. Simple as that. And for the first world as a mini-boss, it's not bad. It's kinda simple, but it's not as simple as the first Kamek fight where there was literally no concept, so in that regard, it's not bad. I think that this is a very generic mini-boss, and it doesn't really have any flaws. I mean, it is really just a big Buzzy Beetle. I just wish the battle system was better. And with the top 2, the battle system did not get in the way, and that's why they're the top 2, and the Big Buzzy Beetle is just right here at number 3. So, whoops, this isn't a top 2. It's a top 3, and I kind of forgot about the big cheep when I was doing the last voiceover, so that's not great, and it kind of knocks the boss a bit because it kind of shows that this boss fight is kind of forgettable, which is actually why it's not number 2 anymore. It used to be, but now it's number 3. So the big cheep itself, I actually have some things to talk about with this fight, which is good. The first thing that I really want to talk about is that this feels like a boss fight in Sticker Star, which if any mini boss feels like a boss fight, that's definitely a good thing. That's definitely a compliment, even though this is Sticker Star, so any boss fight is really just use a thing card and then win, but it is definitely better than fights like Tower Power Pokey and Mega Sparkle Goomba, which is definitely big compliments. Those are actual bosses. But that doesn't mean this fight is great. You have to use the hook, which the hook is kind of annoying to find. You have to find it behind a secret door, which is already not a good start, but it is luckily in the level that you buy secret doors from, so it's not that big of a stretch to find this thing. And that's really all I have to talk about. And it makes sense to use a fishing pole here, / hook, because the fish is in the water, use it to get it out. Simple as that, it makes sense, bam. There you go. Very easy in that regard to actually find out that you need to use the hook. But everything else about this fight, I mean, it's fine. The fish gets bigger, which, I mean, I think it buffs his damage or something. I don't know. This fight is, again, very boring in the grand scheme of things, but compared to other mini-bosses in Sticker Star, this was definitely a pleasant surprise, to say the least. It's definitely not a bad fight. It's more just fine. Okay, so this is actually a good mini-boss. I know a lot of people will disagree with it, and I get why. I mean, the sandals, for a lot of people, they don't like them. And obviously, that will translate from the third Kamek fight into the second one. But this one isn't actually affected by the problems of the third one. Let's talk about the battle system, the flawed battle system in the third one. Mainly, that you have to get 3 slots in the battle spinner to attack every single Kamek, which is very irritating. But in this one, to use the battle spinner, you just get to attack a single Kamek 3 times if you get 3, or 2, or you don't really even need the battle spinner, to be honest, which is a very good thing. I also like the concept of the sandals in general. I think they work because this is the first time you've seen them. And yes, when Kamek goes into the air and you cannot hit him, it's kind of irritating, especially because you can't just skip your turn. You have to use as many sandals as many slots you have, which is stupid. I don't like that. It's why it's not a great mini-boss. But, I mean, he has a decent amount of health. I think his attacks are okay enough. I mean, as a mini-boss in Sticker Star, this fight works. It genuinely does, which is a shock. But, I mean, the concept works. I think that the battle system isn't flawed. The HP, the attacks, everything here works. And it definitely deserves to be number 2. So when I announced that I was going to be doing the mini-boss ranking for Sticker Star, everyone's reaction was that these mini-bosses suck, except for the last Bowser Jr. fight. And I don't completely agree with that. Obviously, I like the second Kamek fight, but of course this was going to be number 1. It's very similar to the Super Ludwig from Color Splash, and that was a very good fight. It was in my top 3 for that game, so obviously I'm going to like this fight as well. All you have to do is use Tails to knock back Bowser Jr.'s attacks right back on him. And it's very simple, but it works. Not only is this a decent concept, it's very easy to figure out because Tails are spread out everywhere throughout the airship. They're everywhere. You just have to use context clues at that point. And it's not a thing card, which is always going to be a plus for me. And honestly, his attacks are pretty good. He sends a ton of stuff at you that you have to deflect with the Tails. And he actually has a lot of health. Now, yes, you do a lot of damage, but he has a lot of health regardless. I think it's like 300. I'm not sure, though. So, I probably should have looked back at the footage before I did this VO, but it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, this is a great fight. He has really good attacks, the Tails was a good concept, it's obviously the best mini-boss in Sticker Star. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you last this long, I really appreciate if you subscribe, and make sure to like the video as well. And also, I have a Flatmates podcast, make sure to check that out, link in the description below, and it's also going to be on your screen. But other than that, G-bye.